Hey everybody, I'm back with another game by the mysterious master. Um, Probably maybe by the time that this video actually gets out, because I have them queued up ahead of time. You will know who it is, but for now, it's a mystery. This game is between Master and the name is totally butchered for some reason, but the opponent's name is Yus, like like Yusss. Master is white, and it's quite interesting. Another very interesting game. They're all very interesting. And yeah, let's just jump into it. We see a very common opening. We see Master still. He doesn't always play this, at least in the games I've seen. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to see 2-4-4 points. I also noticed that white is quite fond of these low approaches, which we don't see as often these days. They tend to be more complicated, but yeah, it's interesting to see. The one space high pincer is relatively. I haven't seen this in such a long time. And then this is a fairly old Joseki. Not too much to say. Typically here, in older patterns, we saw white would push, then maybe black would block, make this exchange. Or black comes here, jumps out, then block. Like we would see this kind of pattern sometimes, but we see white go for this very calm sliding under move, which is nice. The downside is usually that black gets this Atari, but we understand that it breaks up the framework and kind of reduces the potential of this thick shape that black has. Black approaches. The feeling is maybe if black plays here and white takes, black owes a move to prevent white from making the hane. But then white would come to the right side, right? So now this is kind of becoming very inefficient as a wall. So black approaches, white backs off, very normal, and black takes the star point to develop the right. You notice that if, again, this kind of problem still exists, right? If you play here, then white is going to split. If you play here, then this hane is a little problematic. Or you're going to end up with a broken shape and a group that's not completely alive in the center. Okay, so black comes here, and now where would you play as white? Many players I know, or I think, would be like, oh, last large point, if you're a weaker player, or a little bit stronger player, be like, really don't want to deal with this moyo, better invade somewhere. But if you're a bit stronger, maybe low dawn, mid dawn, you would find this push, right? You want to remove black's forcing move that makes this right side strong, and kind of probe, is black going to defend the corner or let this group be isolated? Of course, the center group's not weak, but it's not super strong either, right? You could always take away this eye. Even if black gets this point, it only has one eye, and it's kind of surrounded on both sides. So it's kind of this weird in-between group. So in the game, black defends the right. I think that's appropriate. And then we see a very nice move by white, this attachment. If white just takes another big point somewhere, black can play this hane and start linking up his stones to develop a nice center, right? Even if white hanes, black blocks, there's this Atari here, so it doesn't really go very far. By playing this attachment, we force black to answer. Right now, the hane here, like, this doesn't work right away because there's too many cutting points, right? Just defend, attach, move out, or anything. Like, there's lots of variations. So black can really only defend. You generally don't want to defend this way because there will be some more problems here with potential agi, like this kind of stuff. Or just even giving white an extra forcing move is a little bit annoying, right? Like if black has to defend, maybe this thing can get attacked. Not immediately, of course, but it could be a liability. The main thing is white makes this exchange, which typically you would think attaching to a stone, helping black surround fourth line territory, not good. But it prevents black from linking up the stones and developing the center potential, which is a gain for white, because white can now take Sente to take a point on the left, which is very large. It's actually the last large point of that size. And then black attaches here. I think black played here because he didn't know what else to play. It's kind of difficult. Like, you can extend here, but it's kind of not so interesting. This slowly gets surrounded once white plays here. This becomes a little bit isolated. You can make these kind of exchanges, but then you have to add a move, maybe. And white can take the bottom. The bottom and the left are a little kind of like Miai. The black comes in here. Well, this forces a jump, and then you could take the left. It's a little bit not so big, so maybe black thinks that those two are relatively Miai. And then takes this point, which is the next size in points, right? Reducing the corner. It also defends against the invasion here. But white makes a very nice decision here. White says, okay, you want the corner. I'm going to take the outside, which works very well with the bottom left. And now white has a nice framework. The difference is, before, when black played here, white took the bottom right corner wasn't so thick. So even though black got these points, black also, by letting white build up here, made the value of J4 larger than the value of D10, and so the bottom set became quite nice. So it's relatively still a balanced exchange overall, but if we consider the earlier moves, maybe this is a little bit... no, sorry, not the upper left. I don't know why I clicked that. These exchanges at the top might come back to hurt black later. Black makes this kind of endgame exchange first. And white decides, okay, I'm going to expand and take Sente. So because black took the time to take these endgame, which is quite big, not small at all, black basically ceded Sente to white. And Sente here is really large. It's true that under normal circumstances, by taking these two stones, we actually reduce the liberties of these 4 stones. But this is not so important, because this move already makes a very nice framework with the bottom left. So as long as we maintain some connection here, it doesn't have to be a large moyo, just some connection or stable group, then we already have a decent sized profit. And taking Sente to play the shoulder hit is really nice. The shoulder hit just makes sense. It maximally expands the center potential, and we want to expand the center, not just the side, because we're aiming a little bit at this iffy group at the top, which we mentioned before. Black plays a slide. This is natural. Normally we would push. Let me take off the triangles. Normally we would push at one of these points. I didn't mention it earlier. This Atari is just so that when we push here there's a shortage of liberties. It's not so important. Or there's a peep or a wedge. It's not really important in this case. Normally upper left we would push, but this would help white to get stronger, right, by touching the stone. So instead of that we slide. It's a little bit locally slack, like maybe this D14 stone is now a forcing move, but it does keep white from getting stronger. It's very defensive and thick. White attaches, very nice follow-up, typical follow-up from the shoulder hit. And we're starting to see, we're starting to build a little bit of strength to aim at this. Or just make territory, right? We don't have to go after that. So now that we've built some strength here, built some potential points here, isolated this a bit, we can just take another large point. And this is a nice point because the bottom right already shortened the liberties of these stones. It's a little bit unusual. I don't know how white found this move. On the one hand, once you see it, it makes some sense because we're still developing our own sphere on this side, reinforcing the bottom right. This is kind of territory, but also a little weak. And it indirectly helps cut off the running path from here. It's something that I, like, if it were me, I would be thinking very natural development move. Or maybe time to solidify this, make some points. So this is kind of small, so I would think development. But this move's nice because it also helps the shortage of liberty problems here, which this move doesn't. Like, this peep is quite annoying, actually. Unless you're willing to just give up the stones, but black's not going to take it right away. Black's going to kind of harass you a bit. Like, if you want to take it, leave it there. If you want to go here, now there's a cut. and then this kind of starts swapping the center control. So it's nice, it's interesting. It's not something I would have thought about. It also takes advantage of the fact that b13 is low. It makes it harder for black to come up into the center. Black probes here, taking advantage of the shortage of liberties, and white defends. Very natural. This turn is also natural to take advantage of shortage of liberties, and black invades. Black doesn't, there's not really much choice here. White has mapped out, if we just count, the top side and the upper left are roughly the same. Even though it's not settled, it is roughly the same. The right side compared to the bottom's much bigger, and white has Komi, so white's in a good spot. It's hard to say if black made a mistake, but I think it's a little bit rough. Black definitely has to come into the bottom. This is a very common sequence for settling, the attached double Hane, very normal Sabaki sequence. And white just lets black live small and defends the center. And we now see that there's first of all, white converted this area into points, and there's a wall that's developed along this central line. So typically I think black would want to live, yeah, and then white defends here. If you're greedy, you might say, oh, I'm going to develop the center. But actually your top, because it's weak, black can Hane and jump here and then come in naturally. So also aiming to eat d14, also helping to reinforce this group. This move is nice because it's territorial, it builds this space, follows up in the corner, and because this is getting stronger, this group gets weaker. As long as this group is weak, black can't really severely reduce the center because black runs the risk of making two weak groups. This is not immediately weak, but you can think about if there's a move like this, we play this forcing move, come here, force black to jump out, and then start chasing this, right? There could be a splitting attack. I know there's still this move to connect, but there's that potential anyway is the point. Maybe we can, well, if black does connect here, we still can develop the center. Anyway, it's indirectly helping and is balancing the center points because of the affecting the weakness. So black pushes here to help connect the groups, or to help limit white, and then come over here. And we notice that because this strength is built, now this becomes more reasonable, harder for white to come in and split, like in the last variation I showed. But the upper right is still a little bit weak, this area. I think black at this point probably should just give these up. I'm not sure what black does. Black does give them up. This is a nice point, reduce the influence while building your own space, border of two moyos, right? But this is actually quite large to give up, I think. And this is a nice point. It's aiming at a further deeper invasion, maintaining a loose connection, right? This is hard to break because even though it looks like bad shape, right? If we think about it, in order to break the shape, black also has to make bad shape that can be cut. So it's not so easy for black to attack this stone. Black plays this defensive Kosumi, and I'm guessing white defends, but yeah, attaching, that's totally normal. And black makes shape. How do we think about this? Well, first of all, there's a follow-up by white here, which can isolate these stones. That's pretty annoying. And we're starting to see that two weak groupthink could come into play if white does isolate these. Also, just locally, white spent 3 moves, black spent 4-ish moves. White's reducing this space, and there's still some Aji in d14 as a cutting stone if you get some reinforcements. Whereas this move, you can reduce white a little bit, but not too much. Maybe in terms of reduction it's even, but I'm a little bit worried for black's overall position. Cutting? I'm not entirely sure why we're cutting. I guess the idea is a probe. If black Atari is this way, because you remove the liberty from this, so let's say white just goes, this actually becomes a little bit harder to connect because there's a little bit of shortage of liberties here, is my guess. Maybe white will run and attack the left. That also seems reasonable. I just don't like the idea of being squeezed, you know? I guess you could play this and ladder the stones, right? Like this. Does this work? Yeah, it works. See, there's this ladder that white's threatening. But again, the black would squeeze. I guess this is still fine for white because you can just eat these on a large scale. Not entirely sure. In the game, black does... If you target this way, obviously you're extending, capturing these on a large scale. And there's a peep here now. But in the game, black plays here, trying to make some resistance. Quite normal. White defends, and now black has to save this down. White defends here, threatening this bottom group. We see a really nice technique by white to play this placement. It doesn't really make a huge difference, but it's possible that if you play this later, then J1 gets eaten. It could be a little bit of a loss. So by playing this and forcing black to connect, we limit black's liberties, so that if black ever comes up or something, black will always have this danger of being short on liberties. That's a little subtle. It's not so important, really, compared to this shape because, you know, there's less of a trouble. And then so white comes back and breaks the shape. And at this point, I think black is really, really struggling. It might look really chaotic, but if you think about it, this group is alive. Like, white is strong everywhere. Everything is alive. This is loosely connected to the top. This is weak by black. And these stones now have really bad shape that's being broken by this. And it's not clear how they can live, where they're going, what they're accomplishing, other than trying to basically make life and take out white space. So at this point, I think black is in total collapse. Of course, if it manages to live in not too small a fashion, black will have a nice territory lead on the right, combined with endgame like this. But it's really hard to do that. Like, really hard. White just defends, black's running away. And white makes himself strong, right? If you make yourself strong, then you have the freedom to totally take advantage of your opponent. This is natural, and now black's saying, okay, I'm going to save this group too. I think black's chewing off too much. Leaning attack, aiming at the center potential. Black wants to reinforce once, because even locally, if black defends, this follow-up is quite big in terms of points, and if black defends or something, then the corner's not alive, so the whole thing falls into danger. So it defends, and then now white cuts, having made this exchange on the left. Black's attaching to make sabaki, right? So this is pretty normal. I'm kind of just like on autopilot now because it's all very normal. If black defends, white's going to cut. This is much heavier. If you're going to try to make sabaki and live, you want to do it before making those kind of committal moves because you might sacrifice or you might have other options. Black tries to sacrifice with b6, but white's very calm. Black doesn't have time. Like, this kind of thing, you can cut, but the center is much bigger than the two stones. Black's already alive down here, so black doesn't have time to do that. White makes a forcing move to defend this push, and then defends here, which is nice because now black, when he comes up, can't go in as far. Or if black jumps, it's already blocked by L2. It's nice defense. Black peeps, white connects. And black comes out trying to connect and make some aji. I think this game is almost over. Pushes up, black doesn't have a good defense. Hane building the right, saving this group, even though there's a lot of potential weak points here. Right, there's like this and then peep type of stuff. It's unclear what exactly happens because it's a lot of reading. But, you know, there's a lot of problems for black here. Oh, and actually here in this case, now that white has this cut and white can connect these because these are weak, white can just connect and this can't connect anywhere. Forces once, extends to avoid the shortage of liberties that black could get by haning under. Defends, I'm not sure what the, oh, okay, so if without this move, black just plays here, white can cut, but with this move, black can squeeze under, or just hone it under. But it doesn't matter because white cuts, and this is just aiming to cut, but it doesn't go anywhere. Yep. And at this point, black basically resigns because there's still a cutting point here, so let's say black plays here. There's still a cutting point here that's really annoying, right? And this whole center has basically been annihilated. And black's only really has the points they had at the beginning, right? The right-hand side that was developed, and this is still open. This is not completely safe. So yeah, very little bit chaotic. It makes sense conceptually, but the reading and technical aspects are quite difficult. I feel like I literally just like rushed through that. So I'm sorry about that. I think the opening parts are a little bit interesting. The way we handle groups just don't directly saving things, but indirectly balancing the positions out. I think that's very nice. Black played really well too. Like, this is a very natural looking move, but this is it's actually really sharp reduction. Like, I don't think it's easy to find this kind of move because you're looking at, you have a broken shape and then black has to make a broken shape to cut it with regards to this move. So it's actually that's not a way that at least for me, I don't play this kind of move very often enough to have that instinct. I think probably, pros probably have that instinct down, but I think it's a really nice reduction technique. That's why you can kind of make that kind of large jump shape. And yeah, very natural kind of fighting. At this point, black really is just trying to reduce white as much as you can, but it's really hard because there's so many things that black has to take care of. And I think white just kept themselves strong consistently and was able to wrap up the game. Yeah, I don't think there's too much technical detail. There's a little bit of nice subtleties, but I think especially once white gets back here, all the shape is broken by black. So, very clean game. Not too much to say. I'm sorry. I think the opening is interesting though. We see this really old Joseki in the upper right. Some nice technique. I like this push, even though it's at a certain level, it's like you immediately notice it, but it's a little bit of quiet move that you don't necessarily see right away. This exchange is something I could definitely miss. Many people I think would miss if you're not really strong, just to prevent the hane. There's a certain level where you're like, I really don't want to do extra moves because it could hurt me. They might be bad later, but knowing when to actually make them is really nice. And yeah, I think changing the value and then taking sente for this really nice shoulder hit, I think really made the game flow nicely. I'm clearly, I'm not strong enough to really know what black did wrong, but I think it's really nice to observe the technique and think about why every move works, or like the ideas behind them. And yeah, so okay, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I really am enjoying going through this player's games. They're really interesting to me. So, and I hope they're interesting to you. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks.